What's up guys? Today I'm really excited to talk to you about QiqI, a character who got massive buffs in the last patch with the release of the Ocean-Hued Clam Set. This new set is not only her best in slot in many situations, but also gives her some niche teams where she's a lot better now, as honestly a viable and good healer. Talking positively about QiqI has been something that hasn't been done in so long, so I'm really happy she finally got more uses. While previously all QiqI offered was just a ton of raw healing, now she can also convert that into damage, making her honestly a lot stronger with this new build, especially in certain teams that we'll cover in this video. And so I'm really excited to talk to you guys about QiqI, and so I want to just get right into it. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what changed and why QiqI got better now. First of all, regarding the Ocean-Hued Clam Set, while I covered this in one of my previous videos, the recap of what it does is not only increase your healing bonus with the 2-piece, but then convert all the healing you're doing into damage through a bubble that will explode and deal damage based on how much you healed in the past 3 seconds. This damage caps out at 27,000 if you manage to heal 30,000 HP, but you can actually increase the damage even more by running reactions like Superconduct or any other method to reduce the physical resistance of opponents, as it does scale on that. QiqI in general, even before this set, was a character who heals an insane and honestly excessive amount, but doesn't give much more to your team. She doesn't generate any particles with her skill, and her own damage isn't particularly amazing, especially when compared to other supports like Jean or even Bennett through his burst. But what QiqI does better than other supports, better than other healers, is that she heals just an insane amount. And while typically you don't pick a healer based on how much they heal, for this new set you might actually want to, since capping the set, healing that 30,000 HP, reaching the threshold in the limited amount of time between every bubble is actually quite difficult, and that's why someone like QiqI gets so much value out of it. Since she heals so much passively through her abilities that we'll talk about in the next section, this new set was clearly designed on her and gives her a use case, being able to not only heal your team, but also do additional damage to everything around her constantly as she's healing. This can be procced even from off field, which means as a pure heal bot, when you're attacking on someone like Eula, the bubble will come in and do damage, but also from on field if you run her in like a taser team, which is probably the main reason I'm making this video, because QiqI in a taser team where you're pairing her with Beidou, Xingqiu, and Fischl can be an amazing option, as QiqI attacks quite rapidly, enabling your off-field supports to deal massive amounts of damage, while she also heals and does bonus damage through the bubble that in the clips you're seeing right now is doing around 29,000 damage whenever it's capped. And so that's the recap of why QiqI got buffed so hard and why QiqI is actually viable now. And so now I want to go into more detail on how to actually play and build QiqI regarding like her artifact stats, team comps, weapons, and just everything else that you need to know to play her efficiently, since she did get a lot better, which honestly makes me so happy because I've been friendship 10 with QiqI for so long as someone who just likes her design and wants her to be good. Now before we get into Qiqi's specific build, I want to give you guys a quick rundown on how her abilities and how her healing actually works. First of all, her elemental skill is this Herald of Frost that will swing around you, applying cryo and dealing a bit of cryo damage around you. The healing on this ability is actually pretty nice, as it will constantly restore the HP of whoever's active, so either your QiqI or whoever you swap into, you can have passively regenerate HP through this skill. On top of that, QiQi's auto attacks during the duration of the skill will also heal your whole team, just passively based on your QiQi's attack. Something to keep in mind is that all of your healing does scale with attack, both your skill and your burst, so stacking attack on QiQi is generally a good idea. Now while QiQi's elemental skill is a nice amount of passive healing, the main source of her healing comes from her burst and her talismans. In fact, when you use QiQi's elemental burst, this will do a single hit of cryo damage to everything around you and then apply a mark to those enemies that were nearby. This mark, or this talisman, will actually heal you a significant amount, much more than your elemental skill. In fact, as you can see, the healing of the talisman has a pretty high scaling, and the way it works is that when you damage an opponent that has this talisman on them, the character that dealt the damage will be healed. And so if you're just running QiQi as a healer, what you can do is apply this mark, then swap off her to any DPS you're using or anyone that's low HP, deal some damage, and then that character will get healed very fast. This talisman lasts for 15 seconds, which is honestly pretty insane. It gives you more than enough time to constantly heal and also stack up the bubble from the Ocean-Hued Clam Set that we talked about previously, and we'll talk about more in the artifact section. Also, while the skill damage on this ability is pretty okay, the main downside, the biggest drawback, is that the energy cost is really high, being a total of 80. Since QiQi doesn't generate any particles at all on her elemental skill, this thing does not generate a single cryo particle, it can be difficult to get your burst back on cooldown, which is why you typically just use it when you have it, or run QiQi with characters that can give you energy like Raiden, like other cryo characters, or by giving her things like a Favonius or a Sacrificial Sword that can give you more energy recharge, making it easier to get this burst back when you need it. That being said, even if you can't spam this burst on cooldown, you can typically stack out the Ocean-Hued Clam Set by not only using your elemental skill, but also with the help of your passive talent, which is honestly really good. This passive talent that you unlock after ascending QiqI past level 60 will give your QiqI a 50% chance of applying a talisman, the same talisman from your elemental burst, once every 30 seconds, and this talisman will last for 6 seconds. In fact, the only difference between this talisman and your burst is the duration. This one only lasts for 6 seconds, however it can be really nice during the downtime of your burst, ensuring that your team has enough healing, and then you can maximize the damage from the new set. Also, I wanted to point out that the other passive talent increases the healing bonus received by any character that triggers an elemental reaction when your skill is on field, which can be an okay increase if they need more healing, and this lasts for 8 seconds. And so overall, you can see why QiqI has so much healing built into her kit, making her perfect for the new artifact set. From having healing as an off-field support through her skill and her marks, to having even more healing when she is on field in like a taser team that we'll talk about more later, by auto-attacking inside of her elemental skill. QiqI heals so much that she can very easily make use of the new set, as she gives a lot of passive healing with her skill, and passive healing to whoever deals damage to the enemies that you mark. Also, I wanted to mention that for the talents you should level, I believe your skill and your burst are both very important, as leveling them will increase your healing. Leveling your skill will increase this constant regeneration, and then leveling your burst will increase the healing you get from the mark. So I would highly recommend leveling your skill and your burst, and then for your normal attack, you either ignore it if you're an off-field support, or level it after your skill and your burst if you do use her in like a taser team. And the reason I would prioritize your skill and burst over the normal attack is because with the new set, maximizing your healing is typically going to give you more damage. Alright, so now that that's out of the way, I want to talk about how to build QiqI properly to get the most value out of her. The thing is, there's a lot of different options for QiqI depending on how you play her. That being said, for the artifact sets, it's very straightforward, as the new clam set is really good and what I typically recommend for QiqI, as it makes her a lot stronger. It's the main reason I'm making this video, because it is a big buff to her kit. I'm not going to repeat what I said earlier in the video, but basically this just helps her be more useful, give her more damage while she is also healing, which makes her a better pick oftentimes in a team, because she's not just healing you anymore, she's also dealing damage. I also wanted to specify with this artifact set though, that the bubble can't crit, and it doesn't get buffed by like your stats or anything. It really only scales on your healing and on the physical resistance of enemies, which is why superconduct is nice, and also why you're mainly trying to maximize your healing if you want to maximize the damage of this set, or at least get enough healing to where you can reliably cap the bubble. And so the Ocean-Hued Clam Set is what I recommend for QiqI. Since she heals so much, I highly recommend everyone goes out and gets a 4-piece set for their QiqI. However, before I just move on to the next section, I do want to state that the main other option that I want to talk about is the 4-piece Tenacity of the Millith that will buff your party's attack by 20% whenever your skill hits an opponent, even when you're off field, which can be nice for QiqI, especially if you're running a sacrificial sword, giving more uptime to your elemental skill that will passively deal damage, proccing the set. And while it is nice and can still be viable, typically the new Ocean-Hued Clam Set is a better DPS increase, since you can reliably stack the bubble to the maximum damage by just healing a ton. Also, to avoid any questions that I might get, the reason why I'm not talking or not mentioning the Maiden set is because this just increases your healing, but there's no point in increasing your QiQi's healing further, since she already heals so much that you would much rather convert that healing into damage with the Ocean set. Now, where things can get a bit more complicated is with your artifact stats. The reason for this is because what's optimal for your QiQi honestly depends on many factors, your playstyle, how you're trying to build her, and there's just a lot of viable options. Because of that, I want to try to summarize how to build your QiQi as simply as possible. First of all, since your healing and your damage both scale with attack percent is typically really good for QiQi. If you're trying to maximize your healing and just want the most healing as possible, attack sands, attack goblet, and a healing bonus circlet will give you the absolute most healing you can get. Although going for attack circlet will make you lose out on some healing, but will give you more damage to make up for it, and typically even without a healing bonus circlet, your QiQi is still healing more than enough to where you're overhealing and also still fully capping out the bubble, even through my testing without the healing bonus circlet. That being said, there's a lot of pieces you can mix and match depending on your needs. For example, running a healing bonus circlet with like high attack percent on the substats can be optimal and can even allow you to remove attack percent on one of your other pieces. While I typically recommend attack percent on the sands and attack percent on the goblet, there are other options like energy recharge on the sands being better if you need ER, especially if you're not running QiQi as your on-field auto attacker like in a taser team, but more so as just a healer. You might want more energy recharge, and then you'll make up for the healing you're losing by going for like attack goblet and a healing bonus circlet. The last thing I wanted to add is that crit rate can be nice as a substat or as a circlet if you are running a Favonius sword, as the Favonius sword gives you particles when you do crit, which means you want to have at least a bit of crit rate for your QiQi to proc it reliably. And so I hope I did a good job at keeping this section pretty straightforward, as it was the one that I've had the most trouble basically recording, because it really does depend on you, how you play QiqI, and honestly your substats and what you're going for. Overall though, attack percent is the main stat you're looking for, energy recharge is also really nice, and healing bonus on the circlet is optimal in terms of healing, but attack percent can make for a more hybrid build, so it really depends on what you're going for and how much healing you already have. Alright, so now I want to talk about QiQi's weapons, and similarly to the artifact stats section, this one can depend on many factors and can get a bit complicated. That being said, for a general QiQi healer build, where you're just running her as a healer in most teams with the clam set, the best option is usually a sacrificial or a Favonius sword. These are the standard support swords that both have a lot of utility, sacrificial sword resetting the very long cooldown on QiQi's skill and giving you a ton of energy recharge on the passive stat, with also the Favonius sword giving you a lot of energy recharge, and this one's effect gives you white particles, which will generate energy whenever you crit to not only your entire team, but even more to whoever catches the particles, since that's how energy works in this game. And so overall, Favonius and Sac Sword are the more general options, sacrificial being my personal favorite, and Favonius being better for energy generation if your team is low on energy. Now, while most people can just pick between these two swords and can skip the rest of the section, if you're running her in a taser team, which is honestly one of the biggest parts of this video, where you're running her on field as an auto attacker, dealing a lot of damage through the clam set every 3.5 seconds with the bubble that's proccing, dealing nearly 30,000 damage, and also additional auto attack damage just from being on field. In this specific team, since QiQi's on field for so long, DPSing, while yes, the supports are dealing the most damage, QiQi also does a non-negligible amount to where a more offensive sword can actually be better. In fact, most 5-star swords, even the offensive ones, can be really good for QiQi here. While something like the Aquila doesn't look good for QiQi, the high base attack and the 20% attack that you gain on the effect at refinement rank 1 are actually pretty amazing, especially when you also consider the fact that number 1, you also gain a ton of physical damage bonus, making it nice for an on-field auto attacker, and also the second part of the effect that actually heals you once every 15 seconds when you take damage actually can proc the Ocean-Hued Clam Set. This isn't something that you probably are aware of, but as you can see, the healing from the sword will actually proc that bubble or give you some healing to your bubble, at least from my testing, which means that it does add up to the set effect. And so I do think that a lot of the 5-star weapons that have really good stats, some of the offensive ones, and even Skyward Blade that has a lot of energy recharge, a high base attack, and an effect that increases your normal attacks can be better options, some of the best options, if you're running her in a taser team on field auto attacking. Now, if you don't have 5 stars and you want some more offensive options that will give you more damage than a Sac or a Fav, other good weapons include Prototype Rancor as a free-to-play option with a high base attack, the new Inazuma sword that I can't pronounce that gives you a lot of attack percent and some energy on the effect, Blackcliff, Black Sword, Lion's Roar in a taser team against opponents affected by Electro, and even the Flute all give you a lot of stats, more damage, and also more healing through the attack percent, but you do lose out on energy recharge, which means you might want either an ER Sans or more energy recharge on your substats to be able to use your burst more often. And so overall, as you can see, there's a lot of good options depending on your playstyle. I hope I did a good job at basically simplifying this, but the main thing you should know is that a lot of these offensive weapons that give a lot of attack can be nice for a taser team, whereas the ER support weapons are the more general options. But if you guys still have any questions regarding the weapon ranking, feel free to ask in the comments or even in my Discord. Also, something I wanted to include in this video is that if you somehow get QiqI Constellations, just because she's a standard 5-star, so a lot of people will get it by missing 50/50s, her first one can actually be nice, as it just gives QiqI passive energy generation when your elemental skill hits an opponent that's marked by your passive, which is honestly quite nice for energy regeneration, but not a needed constellation at all. QiQi's constellations in general actually aren't great. This is the only one that I think is noteworthy. Your C2 gives you more damage against cryo-affected enemies, 3 and 5 increase your talent levels, 4 doesn't do much. By only decreasing the attack of enemies, it's pretty bad. And then your C6 is similar to Barbara's C6, where you revive anyone on your team that dies by healing them, and this procs once every 15 minutes. While this doesn't matter too much, I do want to say that I'm pretty sure this works with the Ocean-Hued Clam Set, as it works with Barbara's C6, so I assume it works with QiQi as well. But yeah, overall, QiQi's constellations aren't amazing. Alright, so now we have to talk about one of the most important sections, which is regarding QiQi's teams. As I mentioned multiple times in this video, this new artifact set that just came out gives QiQi many more playstyles and just a stronger role in many teams. For those of you still confused as to what a taser team is, this is when I'm going to explain it. A taser team is one of the strongest teams in the game right now, and one where QiQi can fill skill as the 4th slot. What a taser team is running Fischl, Beidou, and Xingqiu as 3 very powerful burst supports, sub DPSs, that deal insane amounts of damage through their skills and bursts, as you have an on-field character auto-attacking constantly, and through the auto-attack of that on-field character, you will be applying Beidou's burst, bouncing between enemies, Xingqiu's rain swords, and the damage from Fischl's Oz. And the reason why QiqI is such a good option in this team is because of the new artifact set, giving you much needed damage and just bonus damage, I guess, to that team. This is because of the new clam set being able to do almost 30,000 damage every time the bubble procs every 3.5 seconds, which is just a nice additional instance of damage, as you can see, that my QiqI is constantly dealing. On top of that, you're also the healer in this team comp, ensuring that your whole team is always full HP, but the main thing QiqI provides, as I said, is converting that healing into damage with the new set and attacking rapidly, allowing your other supports to shine through your normal attacks. Now, while as I mentioned, the 4th slot in a taser team can be quite flexible, QiqI will both be the healer and a bonus instance of damage to that team, although there are other options, like you can run Zhongli or Sucrose, and Sucrose is typically the most damage in a taser team, but she's a very highly contested support and also doesn't offer you any healing. And while Beidou and Xingqiu can usually be enough damage reduction to where you don't really need another healer, for the current Abyss that has corrosion, it can be nice to have, and also QiQI's damage is just really nice and frees up Sucrose for your other team. Other options other than Sucrose and Zhongli include someone like Kokomi or someone like Barbara, who can be viable, but as I mentioned earlier, QiQI is the healer that can utilize this new set the best, and she's also a character that previously didn't have any teams that were really, I guess, meta or very strong, to where I really like her for this team. And so this is my favorite QiQI team and why I wanted to make this video. However, QiQI in general is just obviously a healer, so you can fit her in pretty much any team that needs a healer as just that last flex healer slot. That being said, a team that can utilize her quite well, other than just a taser team, is actually a Eula one, especially if you run Raiden in that team as well. The reason for that is because Eula is a character who wants to stay on field for a long time. When you use your burst, it's going to be charging up for like 7 seconds, you're going to want to stay on field for quite a while, and that's a period of time where Eula is vulnerable. And so by running QiQI with the new set, QiQI will be able to apply the mark onto enemies, then you can swap it to your Eula, do your whole rotation, which will permanently heal you, making your Eula virtually unkillable, but also increase your damage, since there will constantly be that other instance of damage from the clam set and the bubbles that it creates. On top of that, the superconductor reaction that this team makes for Eula will also affect QiQI's damage, making her even better for this team. The second reason why I like this is because of Raiden. Raiden giving energy to your whole team is really nice for someone like QiQI, on top of the cryo battery as well. Since QiQI can struggle getting her burst back on cooldown, this team makes it a lot easier. While you can use other healers like Diona, which will give your Eula more particles and a shield, QiQI will definitely give more damage through the new set, as it's not a set that someone like Diona can use very well because of obviously how much healing QiQI gives compared to other healers. And so these are the two main teams that I really like for QiQI. For the others, it's mainly using her when you just need a healer, ideally when you need a healer and a cryo support. So for physical teams, like someone like Razor, if you want both a cryo applier and a healer, someone like QiQI can work very well now. Whereas before you would always pick Diona, now with the buff QiQI, she actually has a niche role where she can be a good option. And I want to sort of conclude this video by saying that I think this new set unlocks a lot of potential on QiQI that I think is really good and makes her definitely viable now. While she's still not the same level as someone like Bennett, she now has a usage case and is by far the best user of this Ocean set because of how much she heals, being constantly able to cap out the bubbles and making your team virtually immortal through her healing. Because of that, I feel like it's a good idea to talk about this character in a positive light for once, because you can finally use her and she's someone that a lot of people are going to be having and getting passively through all the banners as a standard 5-star, and even constellations of her like her C1 that can make her even stronger. But yeah, that's about it for me. I wanted to make an updated QiQI guide on this new artifact set, this new build that I think is very powerful and that I have been testing for the past few days. I'm sorry for the inconsistent video schedule. I'm busy with finals and I've just, these videos have been taking quite a while to make just to make sure everything is accurate. So with that being said, I really hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed and sub if you're new. And with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.